Hey everyone, welcome to this session of Full Living After 50. My name is Meredith Fesh. I'm a clarity coach, CEO of PausBox, and the host of Full Living After 50 Conversations. And today I'm so excited to welcome you to this conversation around healing your nervous system and AKA joyful movement, because Dr. Deb Kern has been a huge inspiration for me on my journey, and so I wanted to make sure I shared her with you. Just so you know, the goal and the intention of this series really is about helping you make peace with your 50-ish body, because sometimes it can feel like there's a battle going on, and so you can make peace with information, with connection, with community, and just knowing that it's not all going down south. It's like there's potential here for an amazing 50-ish life. So we're going to continue to boldly create that life we love and the body that goes with it. So joining me today in this conversation is Dr. Deb Kern. She is a health scientist, a women's wellness expert, and a creator of PranaShakti Dance. And I'll make sure she explains what that means. She studied nursing at Vanderbilt, holds a BA and an MBA from the University of Texas at Austin, and a PhD in health sciences from Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. This woman's been busy. She also happens to have a ton of life experience, and she's traveled to apprentice with master teachers, shamans, yogis, herbalists, and healers from the Costa Rica, Himalayas, south of India, Bali, Maui, Mexico, you name it. She's probably studied it. So she's also the author of Everyday Wellness for Women and Create the Body Your Soul Desires. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe tell us, since this is all about full living after 50, tell us where you live, your age, and maybe just your journey thus far in life.
So I currently am based out of a little town north of Houston, Texas called Montgomery. So that's where I'm living right now. It's interesting, my age, it depends on how you calculate age. So
Okay.
if you want to know how many chronological years I've been in this body on this earth, then I'm just about to turn 64 in just like a week. That'd be 64. If you look in terms of how I look at things, it means I'm turning 12, and I can tell you that later.
Oh, good.
So I'm about to turn 12. I'm not quite yet a teenager. What was the other question?
Well, can you dive into that? Because that's fascinating to me, this notion of a reset.
Yeah, so it's so interesting, when people say, how old are you? What does that exactly mean? I'm so curious, like, what does it mean when someone asks, how old are you? I would have you ask yourself the same question. What, like, when we say our age, what are we telling about ourselves? So one thing it tells is that I've lived on this planet for almost 64 years, and so I've seen a lot of changes. It's so fun and interesting to be a certain age where some of you may remember things like, I remember the first colored television set that ever happened, for example. And I remember talking on a telephone on a cord and having to drag the cord through the hallway to try to have a private conversation, all the things that we can remember. And it's super cool. So that age says something about us, like how many chronological years. It gives you some information about what that person has experienced perhaps in their life. But it doesn't tell you a whole lot more because how we spend those years, they say, someone who's 70 could have had one year, the same year over 70 times, or someone could be 70 and had completely expansive, different experiences each year and growing.
Wow.
There's another way to look at age, which I love, through the Mayan calendar, which is a very sophisticated calendar system, the Mayan. And in that calendar, it's quite complex, way much more complex than ours. It goes in resonance with the moons. There are 13 moons in the year. Makes sense. This is the rhythm of a woman's body to go in rhythm with the moons, and for a calendar to go in rhythm with the moons makes sense to me. So there's 13 moons. There's 20 tribes. There's 4 colors, if you will, and so there are permutations and combinations that keep rearranging themselves for 52 years. So in the Mayan calendar, there's not a repeat like we have in our Gregorian calendar. For example, July 4th can happen on a Monday many times in a lifetime. So that July 4th Monday happens, but in the Mayan calendar, that doesn't happen for 52 years. And so how I interpret this is sort of my overlay on it. The way I experience it and the way I interpret it is that we have 52 years of different days for us to grow and evolve and learn, and it's a lot of trial and error, isn't it, being a human? Like we think, I know when I was young, I thought by the time you're 30, you have it all figured out. But those of you who've lived past 30 realize not true. Also not true by 40 or even really 50 is like, wow, I'm still experimenting. And then at 52, the way I experience it is you have a chance to be reborn. So you really get an entirely new calendar, but you get to be reborn without having to die. So now you get to be reborn and keep all of the wisdom that you've gained and kind of have a fresh start, which is super exciting. So I know in our culture, people get all worried about turning 50 or whatever. It's like, well, when you turn 50, in my view, you still haven't been born yet. In fact, I mean, we can talk about this, but in when I've worked with women for so long and I've been paying attention, in my experience, 49 to 52 is a bit of a Bermuda Triangle. It's like the chrysalis where the caterpillar goes in and turns to mush. That 49 to 52, because 49 is the end of 7 cycles of 7. So you've lived 7 cycles of 7, and there's a fullness there, and there's kind of a completing feeling. And when you marry that with the understanding of the Mayan calendar, it really makes sense. If you have had this experience of somewhere between 49 and 52 feeling like mush, like, who am I? What's going on? I would say celebrating, it's like you're in the amniotic fluid, or how if you even look at a chrysalis, it almost looks like a womb. You're in some sort of a womb, and within that womb, there is a dissolution and a rebirth. And just like in a butterfly situation, in the dissolution, it does feel like a death, and there is an assurance. It's a promise that there are imaginal cells in that caterpillar holding the code of butterfly. Just like in you, between 49 and 52, there are the imaginal cells of the you that's coming, and it's grander and bigger, and it can fly. It doesn't have to crawl along on its belly. So anyway, that's how I view it. So that's why in the Mayan system, I'm turning 12. I'm not even a teenager yet. And working with women, I realized too, when you start really paying attention, we actually have the opportunity to revisit unhealed parts of our lives from those ages. So like at this point, I don't know about y'all, but that period of almost turning a teenager, it wasn't very fun in my life. I don't know about your life, but hormones are starting to change, your body is starting to change, and and maybe I had braces, and I'm having dental work now because of things that happened with my braces. Isn't that fascinating?
Wow.
So when you pay attention, what happens is you can see, oh, I get to redo this in a way, but with higher wisdom. So yeah, it's super great. I love it. I just love it.
I love the vision you painted for us, and I can feel, I'm 52, and I left my Stanford career at 48, I think. So I went right into the mush.
Exactly.
And I birthed this mission and this company, and now this full living after 50. And it feels like an uncertain time, but also a letting go of all the old stories and who I used to have to be, and kind of an entry into who I get to choose to be now. So I feel so much more emboldened. That said, I want you to talk a little bit about, are there any, did you go through some physical changes at that time that were rather unrelenting, and how did you work through that, and how do you support the women who are with you right now who are working through that change?
So I personally went through a lot of my physical changes a little earlier. I had my first baby at the age of 40. So I had kind of a big speed bump then
Yes.
hormonally, as you can imagine. So I had a little head start because of that. I feel like that. And I'm reflecting. Um, the ending of menses, which we call, the menopause, for me, that happened in my body between 55 and 56. And so, definitely I experienced some of the things as progesterone drops, the joint achiness, those kinds of things. But what I would say, overarching theme is that, as what I've noticed is, for me and other women, as we wind into menopause, which, as you know, is around a 15-year period, perimenopause is about a 15-year period. So somewhere between 35 and 55-ish range. So a lot of us are in that range. The body basically says this. It says, hey, I gave you all those years of a lot of second chances, like when you drank wine and you felt bad the next day, but you recovered okay, and you ate too much sugar and you didn't exercise and you pushed and pushed and pushed past your time. I gave you like 3 to 4 decades of second and third and fourth choices. And now, instant repercussion.
Totally.
It's sort of
So
like,
feel that. Yeah.
it's like the body says, look, you have enough wisdom now. You know what your body needs. And I have been loving you and carrying you and supporting you for all these decades. And now we need to work together as a team. So I don't consider it punishment from my body. I just consider it instant response for every action I take. And it's very clear. So if you're willing to listen, it will clearly tell you this is okay and that is not okay. And we can't compare ourselves to anyone else.
Yeah.
Other women maybe are okay with or fine with something that you're not. And this is the time of your life to say, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how I need to be nourished. This is not okay. Bring this on. And it just becomes very clear. It's muddy when we argue with ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
when we compare ourselves to how it used to be. Like I hear people say, well, I used to be able to XYZ. And it's like, did you really? Really? Or was your body just giving you second and third chances,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I have to say. I hope I answered that.
Oh,
I
you
don't.
did. I think all of us are nodding in total agreement here because, well, I can relate with the used to be's, right? So having pushed through my entire life as this high achiever and always using my own resources and frankly adrenals to like make stuff happen. And then all of a sudden they weren't there for me. Right. And so the whole network changed. And I did go through a period, and this was kind of my shame period of like, I'm broken, something's wrong, it's unfair. I did a lot of like, why do I have to give up drinking? Like alcohol, everyone else can handle alcohol. Why can't I can have alcohol. I did a lot of this pleading and begging with the universe of like, why does it have to be? I've been so good. Why does it have to be? And then I realized really thoughtfully, have I really been good? Have I taken care have I taken all the options to take care of myself? No, I've done a lot to sacrifice myself for my busyness and my accomplishments and getting, the house moving and the kids raised. So there was a lot of trade-offs that my body was willing to support me through. And now it's just like, as you said, okay, you get now a whole new protocol. Welcome
That's
to
right.
being a real grown-up.
That's Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a time of our life where we are required. Well, this is also really important. A couple of things you mentioned. I want to make sure we come back to using the adrenals. So
Okay. Yep.
help me bookmark that because it's super important. And I have something really important to say. But right now I want to say it's also the place we've all along our life, we've had this choice, but this is where, I think the metaphor I would say is like you're driving along a highway and you know how the exit ramp goes a little bit off. So when we get a little off course, it doesn't seem like that much. But the longer we're off course, the further and further and further we actually are. And it was just like one little off ramp, but now we're like a mile away from the direction we were really headed. And so, and that's where we are at this phase of our life. It's when we're younger, maybe we're a little bit off, but it's not that far off, right?
Right.
But then the number of years off we stay, then it starts to feel quite
Significant.
dramatic, significant. And the dissonance is really, we are aware of it. So this is a time of our life for us to have greater and greater degrees of self-awareness and greater degrees of consciousness, which gives us the capacity to take full responsibility for our emotional, our mental, our physical, and our spiritual health.
Yeah.
And the word responsibility, I love hearing it as our ability to respond.
Yeah.
Right? So our ability to respond to our own wisdom, our own body cues, we have the ability to respond. And it takes high degrees of self-awareness. And to have that self-awareness, the key that keeps us from, there's a split. One is when we have self-awareness, high degrees of self-awareness, and we can respond, then we are in alignment. It's what I call living a Shiro journey, a Shiro's path. We're living like a sovereign queen of our lives. We're not reactionary. We're not victims. We're not martyrs. I know that there's no woman listening who wants to be a victim or a martyr. And yet, without this one thing, you will guaranteed be a victim or a martyr and or both. And the one thing is self-care that helps you regulate your nervous system. And it's not the self-care that what I've noticed is self-care is the key. And then everyone, it's a buzzword. Self-care,
Yes.
self-care, 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 self-care. And then we start to get glazed over, like whatever, is it a manicure and a pedicure? Is it, what is it? Is it getting a massage? Maybe. Is it taking a bath? Maybe. Is it taking a nap? Maybe. But what I've been noticing, and this is really, I literally just figured this out this week, Meredith. This is new. This is new to me. What I've just come to this heightened awareness is that what women are saying is their self-care is actually numbing. They say, I'm relaxing. I'm doing this to relax, but the relaxation or the self-care is not, the end result is not a regulated nervous system. What I'm seeing is a dysregulated nervous system with some numbing cream on top. Have you ever had any, like I had a laser thing once and they put this numbing cream on my face. Like you can't feel your face. It's like that. It's like numbing cream, but there's underneath it, there's this dysregulation.
Yeah.
So you think you're doing self-care and you think you're relaxing, but really what you're doing is you're numbing on the surface and underneath is this dysregulation. If you're dysregulated, and you're not in high degrees of self-care, you do not possess the consciousness necessary to respond to life. And in fact, you then become a victim of, so you react. And when you're reacting, then instead of moving like nature herself, and surrendering and changing shape and adapting, instead you fight and compete to try to survive against all odds, and you're back to where you were. You're back to the Does that make sense?
Oh my God, so much sense. You can see I'm writing every single word you're saying. Um, what I so relate to there is the rigidity that comes from this kind of dysregulated system, right? The control, the make it happens, the kind of all under your own force, you get it done. And then what I'm feeling when you talk about this surrender and adaptation and this more natural ebb and flow, which I assume has more characteristics of a regulated, not dysregulated nervous system,
Correct.
feels
Yeah.
so much more inspired and almost receptive rather than that male, doing. It's like you respond, you don't react. It's more of a response, right? It just feels, I can see this huge change just thinking of the two things. Question: how does someone know, like maybe they're meditating, like we have healthy practices, we meditate, I get a massage, I go for walks, and yet I know that I'm still dysregulated because there's some old patterns, there's some old, wiring, and it's still firing. So can you give us some maybe symptoms or observations or techniques or all of that for someone who's just like, I know I don't have it figured out yet, but I'm open to being curious.
How, I would say, you know that you're in the old, you know that you're not regulated when you, first of all, you have the feeling that you have no choice. That's one threat when I think I have no choice.
Mm.
Really. Unless someone literally has you bound and gagged and someone, there
Right.
are moments, but
Not often.
not often, not
we,
often.
we we bound
So
and gag ourselves. Yeah.
you do, when you feel like you have no choice, I'm just reflecting, how do you know? It's really, you can tell just by the effects in your life. I would ask the questions: are my relationships good? Is there easy flow in all of my relationships? Am I sleeping well at night? Do I wake up rested? Do I have plenty of energy for my day? Do I eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full? Do I feel joyful? Am I excited to wake up in the morning?
Right.
These are questions you can just ask yourself, just the basics. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't. I mean, we all know, I think everyone, your audience is highly intelligent, high achieving women. So we know the science. I mean, you've heard, if you're in your limbic brain, you're not regulated. And the limbic brain is our fight, flight. It's all the F's, there's more F's than there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, feed, fornicate, all the F's. That's the limbic brain, the instant response to something going on. So
Interesting.
yeah.
And I'm wanting to share this experience of even though I have some practices and I set my schedule and I do my best to be in flow and check that default energy of, having no choice or feeling compelled. And I still notice, the deep breathing, and maybe I'm a little shallow. Maybe there's a little buzzing going on. I'm getting kind of, especially when I'm really like getting stuff done and I'm in a zone. And I used to think that zone was a creative zone, but actually I know that zone now to be kind of a hyper alert, hyper vigilant zone, which is the opposite, I would think, of this dysregulation. No, this regulation.
Opposite of regulation.
Yeah.
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 When you're hyper focused, there's no flow. So if there's no flow, regulated means you can flow. Regulated means you can, again, respond. And from rigid,
I see.
you
Yes.
can't respond, right?
Got it.
So even hyper focus has a rigidity to it. Focus is great. I mean, we want focus.
Right.
But hyper focus that's it's just
Mm,
too much.
too
And for
much.
sure, if someone has the awareness to notice breath, I mean, breath is the first thing to tell us. If there's shallow breathing or constriction of any kind,
Yeah.
tight jaw, tight muscles, constriction of any kind, or even mental constriction, emotional constriction, the feeling of being constricted, all of those things are opposite a regulated system. A regulated system has flow. Even when you look at heart rate variability, when your heart rate is regulated, and this is based on the work of Heart Math Institute,
Hmm.
you can measure, this also shows regulation. The heart rate, the heart beats, it doesn't beat just like a metronome even all the time. It goes a little quicker, a little slower, a little quicker. This is normal. But what we look at is the variability of the heart rate. Does the heart rate vary in a smooth pattern, a little quicker, a little slower, a little quicker, a little slower? Or does it go like this?
Little
That
spaz
tells us as
attacks.
well. Yeah. So all of those things are indications. And sometimes, honestly, when we're dysregulated, I find for myself, I don't notice I'm dysregulated when I'm dysregulated because I'm dysregulated. And
Right.
dysregulated, it means you don't have self-awareness. I mean,
Right.
it's a
Mm,
catch-22. And so that's why the regular practices, like you mentioned,
mm,
they are important because they give you a benchmark. So by having a regular practice, whatever it may be, a practice of a yoga practice or a breathing practice or qigong practice or a dance practice or walking barefoot in nature, gives you regular
mm.
intervals of having the experience, oh, this is me with a regulated nervous system. Later in the day, you notice the difference. You may
Hmm.
not, it's hard to catch ourselves when we're completely dysregulated. That's
Yeah.
part of the problem.
Yeah.
But when we have regular experiences, then we start noticing the difference.
Yes.
And that's kind of the clue. That's our
Okay.
clue.
I love that. I love, and it gives me permission to be dysregulated and not know it. Sometimes I'm like, hey, how, if I'm an expert, how can I not know this? Sounds
Welcome
like
to being
a
human.
old tired path. Yes, it's a total human path.
Right.
So tell me about movement because you are such an inspiration to me. I found your work at such a perfect time in my life. I had been going to the gym and doing all the rigid stuff, the body pumps and the stuff, and giving myself a gold sticker for quote doing it right and taking HIIT classes and really these really extreme performance kinds of things that were satisfying my checklist. I felt good about myself, but I never felt great doing it. And then I saw your work and your dance classes, and first of all, they're like so expressive. And I would tell my friends, I'm like, it's a little woo, she's a little, she's like she's talking about energy, and not a lot of people talk about that when it comes to movement. So you just have such a unique um, take on movement. Can you just explain your process and what you offer in the world?
I will, and I'm going to tie it back to what you just said. And I'm also going to flow like nature herself and
Oh, good.
change my if I can find it. Where did I put it? Can
I
you
can
hear the
still hear
mower?
you.
You can hear me fine. And the mower outside, is it bothering you?
Can't hear that at all.
Fantastic. Then I'm just going to keep the way I am.
Good.
So I'm going to actually stand up and show you something because what you were saying earlier and this really kind of makes sense to come together. So I'm going to talk about energy first. So we have different energy centers. Second, this pelvis area, we call it the second chakra, and this energy center is it generates energy. This is creative energy. So it's
Mm,
creative energy comes from here, male or female. But I'm going to talk about a female body. This is also where we physically would create a baby if we were going to create a baby. But it's also the energy of creation, creating projects and everything. Creation comes from here. It's a generator. All right. Above it, this one is where energy comes out. This radiates. This radiates the energy out, like we call our sunshine. So what happens is we go through life as women in this culture, and we do movement that is very rigid and linear. So
yes.
there's walking, And then, like, I don't know, there's tennis and running and
Lots of running.
swimming, body pump and step aerobics, and I did all that stuff. And you notice that this is not moving.
No, totally
This isn't
static.
this.
Yeah.
Right. And what gets this moving, or circular, spiral, this starts to activate that center. On top of it, our culture shuts us down sexually.
Yeah.
So we have, we don't have time to talk about all that, but I know you all know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
If you're gonna succeed in the world, you do it by just getting it done, and you shut down feminine style creativity. Well, energetically, what we do is we put a lid on our generator. Now we don't have access to the generator. How are we going to get the energy to do our work? Well, we go to the next chakra up, which is the third chakra, and we ask, this is not the generator. In fact, what are the glands up here? Right here are the adrenal
Adrenals. Oh, adrenals.
So when we don't use our generator, this is when we're like, I'm passionate about this project. Ooh, I'm so excited. I'm so turned on, so excited and turned on and fueled from my own turn on. We say, oh no, we can't be doing that. We got to just work hard. So we move up here. Well, there's no generator here. All there is spark plugs, those little bitty adrenal glands. So we ask our adrenal glands to do the job of the generator. And so so energetically speaking, we're asking the wrong part of our body to provide all the energy. And so we do it. You did it. I did it. We just keep getting it done. And our little adrenal glands are like, I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Meanwhile, we're sitting on literally a volcano of energy with the lid on. Yeah. We put a lid on the volcano. It's there. It wants to just and give you all the energy and the juice and the passion and the joy to fuel mothering and cleaning the house and starting the projects and launching the course. It's there, but we just don't know how to use it. So movement is one of the ways to open just the energetic pathway. And it requires simply, truly, just like moving the hips, moving this kind of movement forward and back, just getting all that going so that energy moves up and out. And so I do love to lift weights. I love to lift weights. I love to walk. We don't want to throw that out. It's just we also want to do something that has fluid movement and lifts the lid off of that second chakra and lets us feel sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, juiciness in our bodies, and learn how that is not only a viable but a necessary fuel source. So that's what I would say about that.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Beautiful, Deb. Thank you. That was exactly what I wanted people to know about the movement, because, in your class, you're moving to the side, you're moving behind, you're like, it's not just this little marching soldier. Right. And I'm always so, like, my body feels so liberated after a session with you and one of your classes. I'm just like, my energy is bigger. I just can feel it. It's way bigger than what I was like.
Yeah, that's so great. And it's just a liberation of where it's stuck. And it is weird because our culture, we're in the process of creating new ways of being. We're letting old things die that aren't serving us. And one of the things is just rigidity. We want the masculine boundaries and borders, but we also want the flow within. So this is just reclaiming the flow.
So this is a perfect segue, because you have offered a wonderful bonus for the people watching today. And can you just let them know what your monthly membership, it looks like 1 month free, what they're going to get if they sign in?
So I was trying to think, what's the best thing I can offer for you to get a feel? I have a membership group called the Shakti Sisterhood, and each month We highlight a kind of feminine energy, and then we learn how to embody it and wake it up in us so that we keep expanding. And so if you just do it, like just
Jump
do a
in.
month, yeah, just jump in, and what you'll see in there, there's a whole bunch of movement classes already cataloged in there, and then you can just tap in to each month. So in September, for example, we're doing, our focus is discernment, waking up the ability for discernment,
Mm,
devotion, and daily routine.
mm,
And then in October, we wake up fierce, I mean, fierce clarity and willingness to cut and release and cleanse anything that's not serving. In November, we move into abundance and beauty and learning how to appreciate and cultivate more beauty. And then in December, we remother ourselves. So those are just examples of the kinds of feminine energies that we do. And there's always embodiment practices because they're necessary and
yeah,
they're feminine. The feminine is the body.
it's the body. Oh,
Mhm.
thank you, Deb.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
feel even just more alive just talking with you. So your energy is
Oh,
absolutely contagious. So thank you for this session. This conversation has been amazing. I've written down so many notes, and I know everyone watching has had a huge aha, and I encourage you all to follow that aha into more discovery and curiosity into your own divine wisdom. It is there, and beautiful healers like Deb are here in the world to help you go deeper. So I also invite all the viewers today to watch some of the other conversations. We have covered topics, everything from, balancing of the hormones to inflammation and the role of nourishment and gut health, adrenals and stress. We have taken that on and offered some different modalities and approaches to help you balance and rewire. We've talked about trust and owning your own inner authority, and of course the Peace de Resistance is a pleasure, play, and sexuality conversation. So make sure you watch all of them. They're all available to you, and share this with your 50-ish friends, any woman you care about who's on this journey, and join us in the Facebook community for deeper sharing. So thank you all, and thank you, Deb. See you.
thanks for having me, Meredith. Thank you.
Bye.